Hey beautiful people, what is up? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to my little corner of the interwebs. For today's video, I'm gonna do one that was actually very much requested. I'm finally, because I've had this in my possession for some time now. I am finally going to be doing a demo first impressions on the Byredo Mineralscapes palette. This is a palette that I have been honestly waiting for, like anticipating, preparing for some time now, because this is a palette that I know Byredo releases once a year. It's a limited edition palette, and it is the only sort of big palette that they release. So this is the Byredo Mineralscapes palette. Absolutely beautiful, gorgeous, cool toned palette. And as we always do in my videos, I'm gonna give you guys some product details, some swatches. I'm doing 3 looks because we have a ton of shades here. And then I'll come back at the end and kind of wrap things up with my overarching first impressions thoughts. If this is your first time joining me, welcome. I am Jamila, here on my little corner of the interwebs. I like to share all the tips, tricks, best practices, everything that I know about how to get high-end luxury and indie makeup at the best price. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Join the fam. Okay, so now that we've done our little shimmy shimmy wiggle wiggle, let's go ahead and dive into product details. So on the website it says this is a limited edition 18 color palette inspired by the coloration and materiality of Byredo's native Sweden and the natural rural landscape that experts its pull. Cool shades of northern spring colors, from serene nudes via glittering stones to rich and velvety deep blues, are cut through with silvered shine, creating an instinctive and sensual narrative through balance, sophistication, and freshness. The soft, creamy, and lightweight second skin textures deliver rich color payoff in a single stroke and can easily be blended and layered. The effortless, gliding application and long-lasting wear encourages intuitive experimentation. Housed in a mirrored steel case designed by founder and creative director Ben Gorham, with the mineral stones that reflect the shades of the palette. So, like the description said, this is a limited edition product. Every year, Byredo releases one large palette for the year. This is their version for this year. I do have the 2 from previous years, the Remembrance palette as well as the Flora Kalahari palette. So I'm a little bit of a collector, at least I would describe myself as a collector of these palettes. Now, in terms of the product details, or more product details I should say, it does come in this sort of white sleeve where the cover just slides right over it. Okay, it was made in Italy. It has 30 grams of product, or a net weight of 1.05 ounces. It says that this has a 12-month shelf life as well. I don't see anything about this being cruelty-free or vegan. So if that is something that concerns you, please check the website for the full ingredients list. On the back of the palette, it does have the shade names. This is really small, I should say, and very difficult to read with this sort of mirrored packaging that they use. I really like the stones of this one. I really like the design of this one. This does get extremely dirty, fingerprinty, as you can probably tell. And then there's like the beautiful sort of stone design in there. When you open it up, you do have a really nice big mirror, and then you have the 18 shades. I appreciate that there's like no wasted space in this palette. All of the shades are very, very close together. In terms of the textures in this palette, I would describe them as satins for the most part, with some having a little bit extra shine than others. And then there are, to my knowledge, 2 true matte shades. So this is a very, very shimmer heavy palette, but as you can probably tell from the texture of these satins, they are not overly shiny, so they can be used as a matte if necessary. Or you could always reach into another palette if you prefer not to use your shadows that way. All right, and lastly, price. This palette retails for $115. It's not cheap, and it's available on a couple different retailers, but one thing I've noticed is that this has been going in and out of stock in a very, very weird way. From what I understand, the official launch is supposed to be in May, so this month, but it became available on, I believe it was Cult London originally. That was the first place I saw that it was being sold for $130, I want to say. So it was a little bit more expensive there. Then it finally came to the Byredo website. It's at $115 on the US retailers, all of them that I've seen so far, and it's been going in and out of stock. I've also seen it come to, I want to say, Bloomingdale's. So in terms of retailers, it's kind of hit or miss. So if this is a palette that you were interested in, I would not sleep on it. I would not wait too long. And that's something that I never tell you guys. I never tell you guys rush out and purchase something because I don't think it's ever that deep. But I do want to underscore that this truly is a limited edition palette. Once it's gone, it's gone. It's not coming back. And given that I can't really predict what the release is looking like because it keeps going in and out of stock, if you really want this, I say go ahead and buy it. It's not a palette that's necessarily going to go on sale, so you're not going to get a cheaper price. The best you can do to save money on this purchase is that if it comes to retailers like Bloomingdale's, like I mentioned, Nordstrom, or wherever else, you might be able to use a email address to sign up as a new customer and get that 10 or 15% off, which isn't a ton, but when a palette's $115, 10% and 15% off can do a little something, something. It helps bring it down. So that's it in terms of product details. Let's go ahead and dive into the demos, and then I'll come back at the end to give you guys my overarching thoughts. Okay, so, I mean, can we just acknowledge that this is absolutely a gorgeous palette? It's so pretty. We can also acknowledge that there's no deepening up matte shades in there. So I did pull out my Isom All Matte palette. This is the neutral one because I think I want to reach into there for some deepening up shades. Because the deepish shades are this blue and this teal, which is not what I'm going for today. I want to do a completely neutral look. So I'm going to start by going into this shade as my transition shade. And there are no names on the palette. It's in the back, and I'm not going to be flippy flopping between the back and the front like that. So this is a really pretty transition shade. More than just the way I make you feel. It definitely has more depth than I thought. So very happy with this transition shade. Now going into my Isom palette, I'm going to mix the purple with the deep brown. So taking a little bit of the purple first, I'm going to put that into the outer parts, kind of like underneath that first shade. Start deepening things up. And then taking the brown and just kind of running that on the outer parts here. And you know the sweetest words to say. I kind of want to try these two shimmers here. So honestly, these are the three shades that it seems like I'm going to focus on. So starting with this. Oh, that's pretty. I just want to plop that into the center. Oh, that's really nice. And it picks up very nicely with the brush. And then I'm just going to flip the brush over and go into the pink shade right next to it. Oh, that's pretty. And plop that into the inner parts, kind of blending that into that first shade. Okay. It looks pink in the pan, but honestly, kind of silvery blue on the eyes. Okay. So I also want to see really how much impact I can get from it. So I'm actually going to take my finger going into that first and that second shade. Oh, two very, very different textures. This one's a little bit chunky and you can see a lot more opaque. This one's a little bit more transparent, almost topper-like. Just add a little bit more. And I just kind of want to see like how much opacity impact I can get with a finger application. Yeah. See, it's already bringing the drama. if I would have chosen this had I known it was a little bit more silvery bluish. But as you guys know, I always do these things before I swatch the palette, so it does help me come up with like some interesting combos that I probably would not have picked to put together. Okay, you guys see the vision, you know what it is. I'm gonna do some cleanup, which is just a lot of blending and building off camera to finish up this look, and then I'll come back and show you guys the final look.
If you got a problem, you consume me. Oh, baby, now I'm going for it. I'm a star in my own movie. Now introducing the new me, and I bet you thought you knew me.
Okay, so this, wait, I don't even have a lipstick on. Every time I think I'm doing it right, I forget something. Hold on. Okay, so this is the final look. Just so you guys know, I did go in with my Mez Beauty lip gloss. This is in the shade Bay, and I just used a Juvia's Place liner in Cola to get like the dark outer. And that's the lip. Okay, so yeah, this is the first look with the Mineralscapes palette from Byredo. Very soft, very everyday friendly. You guys did see I had to go in with my Esam palette to get a little bit of depth in the outer corner, because there's no deep shade in the palette really. But I think this is really nice for a very natural, soft glam look that actually is a little bit cool toned, which is not something that I wear all the time. So I'm actually quite happy with this, because when I do wear cool tone looks, I'm like, oh, those actually do look good on me. All right, so this is look number 1. Let's go ahead and dive into a couple more looks. Okay, so we are back for day 2 of working with this gorgeous palette, and I can't help it. I have to go into the blues. Now I do want to try this greige. I don't know if I call it greige. I think it's just a gray. As one of the transition shades today. I'm going to put it a little bit lower down because I do think I'm going to have to go back in with the first transition shade I used in the first look. Oh, this actually has pretty good depth. Not enough to really deepen like things up a lot, but I do think I could possibly kind of sort of maybe wear this palette on its own. I'm not going to have a deep outer corner, but I could wear this as just like a light look. Okay, that is encouraging. And today's look, I'm going to use this palette exclusively. I'm not going to reach into another palette, because I really want to see how this works as a standalone palette. So I'm going back into that first shade, and that is going to actually be the true transition shade for today's look. So I'm actually plopping that into the inner part of the eye, and then I'm going to run that over on top of that gray shade. And now I'm going to go back into the gray. And I'm actually going to start building that up in the outer part of the eye here. The thing is, I feel like this looks lighter in the pan than it's showing up on the eye. Now for the shimmers, I kind of want to go in with this blue and this gold silvery. Well, it actually kind of looks greenish silvery. That's what I'm thinking. But then I also, there's this kind of like dark. Ooh, that's pretty. It's like a dark purplish kind of gray. Like dark purple bluish gray. And then there's this really rich blue. I still haven't swatched this palette yet, so these are the shades that have caught my eye for this blue look. So let me just quickly swatch them. So this is that kind of dark gray purple bluish color. This is the light blue gray, which is the first one that caught my eye. This is, I want to say, almost like a green gold. And then we have this beautiful rich blue. Oh, that is pretty. Okay, I am liking these three, everything except for that greenish gold color. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna start with that deep blue, purple, gray looking shade. I'm gonna put that into the outer part here. And then I'm gonna go into that light blue shade and put that into the inner part of the eye. This is turning out a lot more grunge than I was going for, but I guess it's team too late now.
Ready to ignite, ready to ignite. Goosebumps every time I try to catch your eye.
And I'm just taking that blending brush that had that original kind of gray matte shade and just blending around the edges of the shimmer. I don't know what's going on, y'all. I swear all of my looks this week have been like, well, with the exception of two, I guess, have been less than favorable. It's like I forgot how to do eyeshadow. Like, this is not the look I was going for today at all. Like, how did we end up here? I don't hate it, but like, this is not what I had in my head. Oh gosh. And to make matters worse, I'm gonna try something that's probably going to ruin this look. I actually want to try to do some bluish liner using the deep blue shade here because it's so pretty, so rich, that I want to see what we can get from it, if anything.
Like when you're falling asleep next to the girl in your sheets, do you ever think of me? Oh, my head is spinning too fast. Always want the one you can't have. I can't explain it, caught up in your heat wave.
That's not terrible. All right, let me go finish cleaning up the rest of my face, then I'll come back and show you guys the final look.
Obsessing in secret on an overnight. I can't explain it. Can you feel the heat wave too?
Okay, so this is the final look number 2, and yes, the curls are curling, the curls are back. So they're gonna do what they want to do. My hair's been growing. I don't know if you can tell, but these. So if you know how to like keep the bangs without cutting them, let me know. But anyways, the hair is growing. The hair is getting healthier and longer and all that fun jazz, which is exactly what we wanted when we did the cut a couple weeks ago. A couple months ago. I think I did it in February. Anyways, this is the final look number 2. Honestly, I really like how this turned out. One thing I do want to let you all know is that you remember that green shade that I said I wasn't going to use, that greenish goldish shade? I did use, and I went back in with it to just run it over the top because I felt like this needed a little bit of lightness to pull the look together, because overall it is kind of dark, kind of grunge, which I was like not expecting to go. I didn't have that planned at all. I thought this was going to be a light airy blue look. Here we are, grayish blue, gray. So it went completely left, but I thought I needed a little bit of lightness, and I didn't want to do an inner corner highlight. So this is what I chose to do with that green gold look. One thing I will say is if you're watching this, you're probably seeing a little bit of like running in the inner eye. I have really, really bad allergies, you guys. So my eyes are running a little bit, which is kind of messing with the performance of the shadow. It has nothing to do with the shadow. It's just that my allergies are like low-key killing me. It's also why I did not do an inner corner highlight, because it's already just so irritated. I didn't want to add any kind of extra irritation to it. So that's where we are. But really liking how this turned out. I want to do 1, maybe 2 more looks with the palette. Really just kind of diving into it, playing with it on its own, because I think that this isn't one that I can immediately think of looks when I look at the palette, so it does require a bit of creativity for me, which I enjoy. Like, I like the excitement of not knowing exactly what I want to do with the palette and kind of figuring it out as I go along and coming up with things that I didn't exactly plan. So let's go ahead and dive into some more. Okay, so let's dive into the third, and I think this is going to be the final look because I'm ready to move on. Not that I don't like the palette, but I have other things that I need to do and time is limited. But for this, I really want to play in the greens, and I'm thinking about doing just an all shimmer look. No mattes, because these are genuinely that soft shimmer formula that's almost satin-like, so you can blend them out like a matte. So here we have the 3 greens that really caught my eye. Ooh, now this is pretty. This is probably the most glimmery, shimmery of them all. Okay, well, let's go for a monochromatic green look. Although this one does look a little goldish, green gold. Okay. So taking actually you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna start with this shade in the outer V, this one in the middle, this one in the inner part of the eye. Very, very simple 3-step look today. So taking that first shade, which is I'd argue probably the deepest. Yeah, that's pretty rich. And I wanna start by just stamping that into the outer V. And then we're just gonna blend in and up. And I want to concentrate most of my blending on the upper parts because we want it to soften out to be like a matte, but in the inner part to really be, the lower part to really be more of a true like shimmer. Y'all know how it is. It's also super duper gloomy here today. It's supposed to rain all day, which kind of sucks. It's been such a weird week to weekend ratio because I feel like all of the weeks have been hot, sunny, bright, and then you get to the weekend and it's like gloom, doom, rain, cold. Like, come on.
Of what I already know. In the darkness, baby, you sit so close. Press your hand up against.
And I'm using my Refa #1 brush. This is kind of like the Sonia G Wicker brush. Like, this is just a good workhorse kind of brush where it's good for one and dones, just kind of laying everything down. It's good for laying down shimmer, for blending out mattes. It kind of is like a workhorse brush, if that makes sense. Next, flipping that brush over to the clean side, I'm gonna go into this shade, which is that really nice sparkly green.
No, 'cause it's spoken for.
And I'm gonna put that into the center of the eye here.
Wonder if you ever told her. No, 'cause you're spoken for.
I mean, arguably, these are kind of blending into the same shade, so did we need both? Probably not.
Better stop saying my name. Every time she leaves town, you come running back around. I know I should say.
And then going into the lightest green, which is almost a bit of a green gold. And we're gonna put that into the inner part of the eye here.
But what happens when it's over? After a drink you say my name, but forget me when you're sober. I'm thinking we're over. I know I'll never get closure. No, 'cause you're spoken for. No, 'cause you're spoken for.
Okay, I'm just gonna go back in with the first 2 shades, blend everything together, make sure that we have a nice sort of seamless look, and then come back and show you guys the final look.
You're sober. I'm thinking we're over. I know I'll never get closure. No, 'cause you're spoken for. No, 'cause you're spoken for. Oh yeah, yeah. I'm thinking it over.
Okay, so this is the third, and I think I'm going to stop here, final look with the Byredo Mineralscapes palette. So let me just tell you guys, I really like this. I really like this palette, and quite frankly, I knew that I would because I do appreciate the Byredo formula. When it comes to luxury eyeshadow formulas, they hold a very special place in my heart because, in my opinion, they are probably some of the most versatile formulas out there. A lot of the times, like, people will gravitate towards indie eyeshadow because they're super high shine, they're super sparkly, they're super impactful. But sometimes they don't work because, one, they may be too creamy. The shiny and impactfulness of it can actually result in emphasizing texture, or if you have, lines or older, more mature skin, it can not look as, I don't say as good. It can not be as flattering on certain skin types. But what I found with luxury formulas and luxury brands is that they tend to gravitate towards a softer, more finely milled formula that allows shadows to perform in multiple different ways. So they can be both a shimmer shade, but also like a transition matte shade. And by that I mean that you can typically oftentimes blend them out at the edges and create a very soft look. They have a very fine like pearl tone to it, so you get a little bit of shine without it being super crazy. However, if you want to amp it up, you can either spray your brush and add some shine that way, or sometimes it'll be a very finely milled kind of like topper shade. So I really have an appreciation for luxury formulas because of the versatility and the fact that I feel like it works on a lot more different skin types, skin textures, all that fun jazz. So this is the Mineralscapes palette from Byredo. I do think that this is an absolutely beautiful one. This is quite frankly not what I was expecting because it definitely is on the more winter side of things. I think from this color story, it definitely leans more cool toned, so I'm not mad at that because it does fill a gap in my collection. You guys know that I have a yellow/golden undertone, so when it comes to shadows, I tend to gravitate towards palettes and brands and whatnot that lean a little bit more warm, a little bit more golden. So this adds a little bit of diversity to my collection because it's not one that I have. The one con I would say from this palette is the lack of matte. But like I explained, you don't need to have a matte because these blend out so beautifully. Like, I'm not wearing a single matte in this look today, and I still think it looks good if I do say so myself, and I do say so. But if you are somebody that prefers to have mattes to ground your looks, that might be a con for you. The other thing too is the fact that in terms of the depth of this palette, the deep shades really are this kind of like blue tealish, these two colors right here. So you're not going to get a ton of depth from it, but I do think that this palette does offer more depth than it looks in terms of even the two mattes that they gave us. They do blend out pretty nice. They have more richness to them on the eyes than in the pan. So I was kind of surprised by that. And quite frankly, very satisfied with the amount of depth that we have in this palette. And I don't mind going into another palette for mattes or using my bronzer as a shade to either buff out the edges or give me a little bit of extra depth. So I don't mind having to do that. But that might be something that might be an overall con for you. This is a palette that I look forward to every year because they only release one a year. I look at it the same way I look at a Pat McGrath Mothership, because that's also released one per year. So for me, it is a little bit of a collector's item, but it also does work out to be very, very great value. If you look at the Byredo, I believe they're quints, they are not cheap. And if you look at how much product you get in this palette for the $115, it is a much better value to pick this up. And I don't see myself, buying Byredo on a constant basis and buying all of these small palettes that they release, but I do see myself continuing to collect this. Now, let me just quickly show you guys what this looks like compared to the other palettes that they've released in previous years. So the first one that I ever picked up from them was the Flora Kalahari palette. This might actually be my favorite in terms of packaging. I love the rose of this one. They all come in that metallic reflective packaging, just something to be mindful of. And this is just, as you can probably tell, this is me in a palette. It's an extremely, extremely warm color story, which is what I live for. And this one does have a little bit more depth to it than the previous palette. It is also quite shimmer heavy, so that I think is a theme that kind of carries through with these palettes. But I love this one. This is one of my absolute favorites. And then the one that they released last year is the Remembrance palette. This is not packaging that I like. Like, what is this? Seriously. But this is also one that I think I've actually used this the most, I would assume, because this is neutral, but also still in that very warm vein of neutrals. So I think that this leans on the warmer side. You have the more golds, coppers, you do have some silver sprinkled throughout, but quite frankly, the grounding shades, the mattes here are warm. And this one has a lot more mattes than the previous one. So if you're someone that prefers a more matte heavy palette, you might actually appreciate this one more. And I'm showing you guys this, but just note these aren't available anymore because they're limited edition palettes. But this is the Remembrance palette. Absolutely love this. I need to pull this out again. So like I said, to me, it definitely makes sense as to why this new palette is a more cool toned palette, because the last two that they released are definitely warm palettes. So just to show you these next to each other, this is Remembrance versus Mineralscapes. And then we have Floral, Kalahari, and Mineralscapes. Oh, these all need to be focused palettes really soon. I absolutely adore these. Like, oh, I love my little baby collection of these. And I don't think that I mentioned this, but one thing I do appreciate about this new Mineralscapes palette is the versatility outside of like the formulation in terms of color story. One thing you do get with this palette is that there are blues, greens, neutrals, so but cool tone neutrals. So in terms of like how many different looks you can get with this palette, a lot of versatility, you guys. If it is still available, I would definitely recommend picking it up if you are interested. Like I said, these are limited edition palettes. Once they're gone, they're gone. And the resale price I've seen on Mercari for some of these is stupid. So if you are even remotely interested in it, definitely pick it up. I believe the last time I checked, it was available on Bloomingdale's. And the good thing about that is if you haven't shopped at Bloomingdale's before, or if you're willing to create a new account, I'm pretty sure you can create a new account, get 15% off, and save some money that way. Other than that, you're going to pay the full $115. And these have increased every year in price. Last year, it was $105. And I believe the year before, it was in the $90, $95 range. So it was less than $100. So every year, the palette continues to go up in price, which is annoying. But like I said, it's still less than if you were to purchase one of the Quints from Byredo, if you look at it as a kind of like cost per gram perspective. So that is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing my thoughts, my 3 looks on the palette. Apologies if my eyes look a little bit weird. I am dealing with allergies, so I have a lot of running in the inner parts of my eye, which is messing up like the inner half of my eyeshadow. So it's not the eyeshadow that's performing weird. It's literally just my allergies and my eyes not being cooperative during the season. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button before you leave. If you enjoyed the content and you want to see more from me, the subscribe button is always there too. So hit the subscribe button so you know every time I upload. There's also a little bell that you can ring which will notify you every time I have an upload. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you all so much more than you know, and I'll catch you in my next one. Bye.